The geographical focal point of the inquiry is Bardstown, located in Nelson County, Kentucky. The municipality sits approximately 40 miles southeast of Louisville and rests at an elevation of 646 feet above sea level. In July of 2015, the region was experiencing typical midsummer meteorological conditions. Historical weather data for the area recorded temperatures ranging from a low of 65 degrees Fahrenheit to a high of 82 degrees Fahrenheit, with humidity levels hovering near 70%. It was the weekend of the 4th of July, a period statistically associated with increased vehicular traffic and social gatherings. The primary subject of the file is Crystal Rogers, a 35-year-old resident of Bardstown. According to vital records, Rogers was a mother of 5 children. At the time of the relevant events, she was cohabitating with Brooks Houck, her boyfriend, and the father of her youngest child, at a residence located on Pascal Ballard Lane. The residence is situated on a large parcel of land, characterized by rural spacing and agricultural surroundings. The timeline of the investigation officially commences on Friday, July 3rd, 2015. Procedural reconstruction of the day indicates that Rogers was engaged in routine domestic activities. According to retail transaction logs and surveillance footage secured by the Nelson County Sheriff's Office, Ms. Rogers was observed entering a Walmart location in Bardstown during the afternoon hours. The receipts recovered later provided a verified timestamp for her movements, placing her at the point of sale at approximately 4 o'clock post-meridian. The items purchased were routine household goods, suggesting an intent to return to her daily domestic schedule. There were no indicators of distress or plans for an extended departure noted in her demeanor on the security recordings. Following the transaction at Walmart, cellular telephone records analyzed by the Kentucky State Police indicate that Ms. Rogers' device was active and connecting to local towers. At approximately 7 o'clock post-meridian, records show that Ms. Rogers arrived at the residence she shared with Brooks Houck. This location is significant to the chronology, as it represents the final confirmed location where Ms. Rogers was seen by known associates. The residence, a single-story structure situated on a large plot of land, became a primary focal point for investigators attempting to reconstruct the hours between sunset on July 3rd and sunrise on July 4th. According to statements later provided to the Nelson County Sheriff's Office, the last person to visually confirm her presence was Brooks Houck. In subsequent interviews with investigators, Houck stated that on the evening of July 3rd, Rogers was present in their shared home. He reported to authorities that the two had visited the Houck family farm earlier in the day to feed cattle, a routine task for the couple. Upon returning to the residence, Houck stated that the evening proceeded without notable incident. He claimed that the last time he saw Rogers was late that night. According to his account, she was playing a game on her mobile device. Houck stated that he went to sleep, and when he awoke the following morning on July 4th, Rogers was no longer in the residence. He indicated to law enforcement that he assumed she had gone to the residence of her cousin or another family member, as their relationship had experienced intermittent periods of strain. The last outgoing communication from Ms. Rogers' cellular device was logged that evening. According to statements provided by family members, she was browsing social media platforms. The digital forensic analysis confirmed this activity ceased abruptly. The specific time the device stopped transmitting data to the network became a critical marker in the investigation, delineating the boundary between her verified presence and the subsequent period of silence. Throughout the entirety of July 4th, 2015, the Independence Day holiday, no communication originated from Ms. Rogers. This was noted by her family, specifically her mother, Sherry Ballard, as highly irregular. Ms. Rogers was known to be in constant contact with her family and her 5 children. The absence of text messages or voice calls on a major holiday prompted immediate concern. Cellular telephone records, analyzed later in the investigation, showed a total cessation of outgoing activity. Family members attempted to contact her to coordinate plans for the holiday weekend, but calls went unanswered or were directed to voicemail. The failure of Ms. Rogers to attend a scheduled family gathering on July 4th served as the primary catalyst for the search efforts that would follow. The procedural momentum shifted on Sunday, July 5th, 2015, at approximately 2 o'clock post-meridian. A maroon 2011 Chevrolet Impala was observed by a passing motorist on the Bluegrass Parkway. The vehicle was located near mile marker 14, westbound. The Bluegrass Parkway is a controlled access highway that traverses the central portion of the state with a posted speed limit of 70 miles per hour. The section of the roadway where the vehicle was discovered is bordered by dense vegetation and sloping terrain typical of the Kentucky geography. The motorist alerted authorities to the presence of the disabled vehicle. Personnel from the Nelson County Sheriff's Office and the Bardstown Police Department responded to the location. Upon arrival, responding officers conducted an initial assessment of the vehicle. The license plate was run through the Law Information Network of Kentucky, confirming the registration belonged to Crystal Rogers. The physical condition of the vehicle was documented in the initial incident report. The Chevrolet Impala was parked on the shoulder of the roadway, clear of the active traffic lanes, but clearly abandoned. A primary observation was the condition of the left rear tire. It was flat. Officers noted that the tire was not shredded or indicative of a blowout at high speed. Rather, it appeared to have lost pressure while the vehicle was stationary or moving at a low velocity. Subsequent forensic analysis would be required to determine if the deflation was caused by road debris or manual tampering. The responding deputy noted the position of the car. It was parked haphazardly on the left shoulder, partially obstructing the emergency lane, rather than the right shoulder, which is standard for disabled vehicles. This positioning was later cited in reports as an anomaly, suggesting the driver may have stopped abruptly, or that the vehicle was placed there hastily. Further inspection of the vehicle's exterior and trunk area revealed specific anomalies. The trunk of the Impala was not secured. It was slightly ajar. Inside the trunk, investigators located a jack and a lug wrench. However, the placement of these tools was noted as significant. They were not deployed under the chassis of the vehicle in a manner consistent with an attempted tire change. Instead, they were lying loosely within the trunk compartment. There was no evidence to suggest that the spare tire had been removed from its storage well, or that the lug nuts on the flat tire had been loosened. The interior of the vehicle was subjected to a visual inventory. The doors were unlocked. Resting on the center console were the keys to the vehicle. This detail was flagged immediately by responding personnel, as it is statistically rare for an individual to abandon a vehicle due to mechanical failure while leaving the ignition keys in plain sight. Also present inside the cabin was a red purse belonging to Rogers. An inventory of the purse's contents confirmed the presence of her personal identification, wallet, credit cards, and cellular telephone. The presence of the mobile device was a critical evidentiary point, as it contradicted the possibility that she had walked away from the vehicle to summon assistance. Additionally, a diaper bag containing supplies for her youngest child was listed in the vehicle inventory. The totality of the items left behind transportation, communication, identification, and financial means led investigators to conclude that Ms. Rogers did not leave the vehicle voluntarily. The discovery of the vehicle prompted immediate notification of the registered owner's family. Sherry Ballard and Tommy Ballard, the parents of Rogers, were contacted. Upon receiving the information regarding the abandoned vehicle, Sherry Ballard formally filed a missing person report with the Nelson County Sheriff's Office. The report was generated on July 5th, 2015. The official classification of the case was that of a missing person. Following the recovery of the vehicle, the focus of the inquiry turned to the timeline of the vehicle's placement. Investigators sought to determine exactly when the Impala arrived at mile marker 14. The Nelson County Sheriff's Office began the process of canvassing the route and requesting data from any available surveillance systems that might cover the entry and exit points of the Bluegrass Parkway. However, the specific stretch of highway where the vehicle was recovered lacked direct video monitoring. The vehicle was towed to a secure impound lot for detailed processing. Technicians processed the steering wheel, door handles, gear shift, and trunk release for latent fingerprints and biological material. The items found within the car, specifically the cellular telephone, were secured for digital forensic extraction. The objective was to retrieve call logs, text message history, and geolocation data that could reconstruct the device's movements between the evening of July 3rd and the afternoon of July 5th. Simultaneous to the vehicle processing, detectives initiated the interview phase. Brooks Houck was interviewed regarding his knowledge of Rogers's whereabouts. During the initial interactions with law enforcement on July 5th, Houck maintained the narrative that he had last seen Rogers on the night of July 3rd at their home. When questioned about the vehicle found on the parkway, records indicate Houck stated he was unaware of why the car would be at that location. Investigators noted discrepancies in the timeline provided. Specifically, the lack of attempt to contact her throughout the holiday weekend was flagged as inconsistent with the relationship dynamic described by other witnesses. When asked why he had not reported her missing, reports indicate Houck suggested she might be playing games or taking time away. During a subsequent interview on July 8th, investigators pressed for more granular details regarding the night of July 3rd. The statements provided regarding the exact time they went to bed, the exact time Mr. Houck awoke, and the precise position of the vehicles in the driveway were documented extensively. Variations in these accounts, when compared to digital data from the cell towers, created friction points in the narrative. During this interview, a specific procedural event occurred that was later scrutinized by independent observers. At one point during the questioning, Houck received a telephone call. The caller was identified as his brother, Nick Houck, who was at that time an active officer with the Bardstown Police Department. The recording captured Brooks Houck answering the phone in the interrogation room. The brief exchange involved Nick Houck advising his brother to cease speaking with the investigators. This intervention by a sworn law enforcement officer into an active inquiry regarding a missing person raised immediate concerns regarding jurisdictional integrity and potential obstruction. Following this interview, The investigation expanded to include Nick Hauk. Investigators subpoenaed records related to the movements of the police cruiser assigned to Nick Hauk. Fleet management logs and GPS data from the cruiser were analyzed for the dates of July 3rd and July 4th. The analysis revealed a gap in the timeline where the vehicle's movements were unaccounted for or inconsistent with his stated patrol duties. Furthermore, records indicated that Nick Hauk had been in contact with Brooks Hauk during the critical hours following the disappearance. The layout of the Pascal Ballard Lane residence was also documented. The property is extensive, limiting visibility from neighboring structures. The driveway is long, providing a degree of privacy from the main road. Investigators noted that any vehicular movement in or out of the property late at night would likely go unnoticed by the surrounding community unless specific surveillance measures were in place. On July 6th and 7th, the search for Crystal Rogers intensified. The area surrounding mile marker 14 on the Bluegrass Parkway became a primary location of interest. Search and rescue teams, including canine units, were deployed to canvass the roadside vegetation, the median, and the wooded areas adjacent to the highway. The terrain presented challenges due to the density of the summer foliage and the uneven topography. Searchers utilized line formations to ensure complete coverage of the ground. The weather conditions during the search remained hot and humid, with temperatures reaching the high 80s. This environmental factor was noted for its potential impact on any biological evidence that might be present in the environment. By July 8th, the investigation began to reveal inconsistencies in the timeline provided by initial witness statements. Law enforcement focused on the window of time between late July 3rd and the morning of July 4th. They sought to corroborate Brooks Hauk's account of the evening. The digital evidence from Rogers's phone was analyzed to determine the time of the last data transmission. Cell tower triangulation data was requested to map the device's location relative to the Pascal Ballard Lane residence and the Bluegrass Parkway. The investigation also examined the tire of the Impala more closely. A forensic analysis was ordered to determine the cause of the deflation. Investigators looked for puncture marks, valve stem tampering, or sidewall damage. The absence of a chaotic shredding pattern suggested a slow leak or a deliberate release of air, rather than a catastrophic failure at highway speeds. This technical detail raised questions about why the vehicle stopped exactly where it did. Additionally, the inventory of the car revealed that while the diaper bag and personal effects were present, there were no indications of a struggle within the cabin. The seats were in their normal positions, but the rearview mirror and driver's seat were adjusted. Specifically, investigators noted that the driver's seat was positioned for a person significantly taller than Rogers. Rogers stood at 5 feet 5 inches. The seat position was consistent with someone of Brooks Houck's stature. This was noted in the supplemental reports as circumstantial evidence of an alternate driver. On July 10th, the search radius was expanded. Investigators executed search warrants for the residence on Pascal Ballard Lane. The objective was to locate any forensic trace evidence that could indicate whether Rogers had been injured at the location or if she had left voluntarily. Crime scene technicians processed the home, looking for biological fluids, cleaning agents, or signs of a disturbance. They also seized electronic devices belonging to residents of the home for analysis. During the execution of these warrants, the demeanor and cooperation level of the subjects were noted in official reports. Police records indicate that Brooks Houck was present during the search. The investigators documented the collection of several items of potential evidentiary value. A critical piece of evidence surfaced regarding the movements of a vehicle belonging to Nick Houck, the brother of Brooks Houck. A review of surveillance footage from a local business captured a police cruiser consistent with Nick Houck's assigned vehicle in the vicinity of the farm and the residence during the critical window of the disappearance. The exact timestamps of this vehicle's movements were cross-referenced with the estimated time of Ms. Rogers' disappearance. Additionally, investigators became interested in a white truck owned by Brooks Houck. Witnesses were sought who might have seen this vehicle in conjunction with the maroon Impala. Grainy video from a nearby industrial site showed a vehicle resembling the Impala traveling on the Bluegrass Parkway late on the night of July 3rd, followed closely by a second vehicle. Digital enhancement experts worked to resolve the license plates or identify the make and model of the trailing car. But the low resolution and poor lighting conditions limited definitive identification. The investigation also focused on a bonfire that was allegedly held at the farm on the night of July 3rd. Witnesses and aerial photography were used to determine if a fire had indeed occurred. The soil composition at the alleged burn site was tested for accelerants and foreign debris. The existence of this fire became a contentious point, as initial denials of the event were later contradicted by witness statements, placing individuals at the location during the time frame in question. In August 2015, the focus shifted to the administrative handling of Nick Houck regarding his interference in the case. Internal affairs documents from the Bardstown Police Department indicate that he was subjected to a polygraph examination. The specific physiological data points recorded during the exam, respiration rate, blood pressure, and galvanic skin response, indicated deception when he was questioned about his knowledge of the disappearance. The procedural fallout from this failed examination was swift. On October 16, 2015, the mayor of Bardstown issued an order of termination for Nick Houck. The official termination letter cited insubordination and interfering with the Nelson County Sheriff's Office investigation. The geographical scope of the search widened in 2016 to include local waterways. Divers were deployed to search the bottoms of lakes and ponds in Nelson County, particularly near the Houck farm. Procedural logs from the dive teams describe zero visibility conditions, requiring divers to search by touch. They dragged the bottoms for metallic objects or weighted bundles. Several items were recovered, including unrelated discarded appliances and debris. But nothing definitively linked to the case was cataloged during these aquatic operations. Throughout the investigation, the chain of custody for all evidence was rigorously documented to prevent defense challenges in future litigation. Every soil sample, fiber, and digital drive was sealed in evidence bags, labeled with the case number, date, and collecting officer's badge number, and signed into the secure evidence locker. The timestamps on these transfers created a permanent audit trail of the investigation's physical component. The forensic analysis of the Impala eventually returned mixed results. While DNA consistent with Rogers was found in expected locations, such as the steering wheel and door handle, there was also the presence of unidentified genetic material. This material was insufficient for a direct profile match in the national database at that time. Furthermore, luminol testing conducted on the trunk liner yielded inconclusive reactions, neither confirming nor ruling out the presence of biological fluids that might have been cleaned prior to the vehicle's discovery. Forensic accountants also began dissecting the financial records of the individuals involved. They looked for unusual withdrawals, credit card transactions, or transfers of assets that might indicate a paid disappearance or cleanup costs. No significant financial anomalies were immediately flagged in the public releases of the investigation, though these records remain part of the sealed case file. The investigation also cataloged a series of anonymous tips. Each tip was assigned a tracking number and followed up by a detective. These leads involved checking remote barns, interviewing known associates of the Houck family, and reviewing satellite imagery for signs of ground disturbance. While many leads were closed as unfounded, several remained open pending further corroboration. The sheer volume of information required the implementation of database software to cross-reference names, dates, and locations, turning the investigation into a massive data processing operation. By the 1-year mark of the inquiry, the file contained thousands of pages of interview transcripts, subpoenaed phone records, and forensic reports. The absence of a physical recovery of Rogers remained the primary obstacle to advancing the case from a missing person inquiry to a criminal prosecution. The Commonwealth's attorney noted in procedural filings that without the recovery of the individual, proving the cause of the cessation of life required an overwhelming amount of circumstantial evidence. The context of the Rogers investigation was further complicated by the broader atmosphere in Bardstown. The community was already sensitive to unsolved criminal inquiries. The 2013 loss of Officer Jason Ellis, who was injured during an incident on an exit ramp of the Bluegrass Parkway, remained an open case. While there was no direct evidentiary link between the Ellis case and the Rogers disappearance, the geographical proximity, both involving the parkway and the lack of resolution, created a palpable tension within the jurisdiction. In summary, the investigative phase established a rigid set of facts. Crystal Rogers was last confirmed seen on July 3rd. Her vehicle was recovered on July 5th at mile marker 14 of the Bluegrass Parkway, with a flat tire and keys in the ignition. And all communication from her device ceased on the night of July 3rd. The investigation proceeded from this baseline, treating the vehicle as the primary physical anchor in a case otherwise defined by a lack of direct observation. The absence of the individual was total, and the procedural machinery of Nelson County was fully engaged in the attempt to reconstruct the lost hours of the holiday weekend. The incident is defined not by a singular moment of violence, but by the accumulation of these anomalies: the unlocked car, the keys in the ignition, the silence of the phone, and the flat tire that was never changed. Each element, documented in the official file, points toward an interruption of routine so severe that it resulted in the total disappearance of Crystal Rogers. The absence of the individual is the central void around which the procedural machinery of the investigation began to rotate. Driven by the doctrine of evidence,